Hi, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of Your Career Unscripted. I'm your host, Jane Cortez, and I interview business leaders and share their stories to inspire you to build a career on your own terms. I'm very excited about our guest today. Traci Saulsberry is a senior communications executive, leadership coach, and writer. At 27, she became one of the youngest Black executives at NBC, where she spent 14 years shaping narratives at the highest levels of entertainment. She later built and led the communications team at Peacock, managing a team of more than 30 people during the platform's launch and growth. She's currently a host and narrator for Calm, the world's leading meditation and sleep app, where she guides original series including workplace well-being, professional growth, processing world events, designed to help audiences navigate life with clarity and care. As a leadership coach, keynote speaker, and learning facilitator, Saulsberry works with early career professionals, executives, and business owners with a focus on helping individuals find and own their voice, particularly while navigating spaces where they are underrepresented. She also serves as an adjunct professor at Syracuse University's Newhouse School, where she teaches entertainment publicity. Traci, I'm very excited to have you on the podcast today. I've spent the last month or so reading your book. This is how you love her. I absolutely loved it. You are incredibly brave and so vulnerable in the book. I think your writing is beautiful. I am someone that marks up books a lot. I know you mentioned that you do that too. The number of pages that I just...
my heart flutter.
Yeah. I even just preparing for this interview, there were so many lines that I love that have really stuck with me that I want to ask you about, but I'm really appreciative of your time. I know it's a unique situation where I now know a ton about you. It's just a unique situation, but I'm so grateful for the opportunity to speak with you.
Thank you. I know I'm getting used to that fact of oh wow, that person might know me more than I know them. But it makes me so happy to see that you marked up a book that is mine. I don't have it on me, but I've carried that one in my purse since I've gotten it, and it's all worn in, and I've marked it up myself. I keep going back to it when I'm stumbling, and I'm okay, what do I need to know right now? What do I need to remember? So
yeah,
I'm really happy that you read it. Thank you for reading it.
No, of course. The depth of your thought processes and the stories that you share in the book are really... They're beautiful and they resonated a lot with me. I want to kick things off, and I'm going to include a bunch of quotes in the questions that I ask you today. So in your book, you wrote that you said, "I stood at the top, successful and lost." Can you talk about the experience of feeling very successful on paper, but internally having such a different experience? And what do you think we've misunderstood about success?
Yeah, I think I halfway was aware of it in the moment. I write hindsight is 2020. So when I'm looking back, I can see man, I was lost. When I was in it, I was clocking I remember I would have these chest pains, crazy heartburn, and I would just attribute it to oh, I ate something, or, yeah, that's stress. But I wasn't equating it to maybe you need to step back and look at not necessarily that corporate is bad or this place is bad, but how are you functioning in this environment? And I didn't quite have the language or understanding. I wish I would have had a book like this of just someone telling me that they were feeling that as well, and maybe some steps to look at myself and make sure that I was in the right place. But so looking back, yeah, my hair falling out or feeling the pains in my chest, those were all indicators that I wasn't exactly where I wasn't living out my full life's purpose, because I didn't know who I was in that space. And I think that's the biggest thing that I want to drive home. It's you can be and work and live anywhere, but to know who you are means that you're in those spaces in a much healthier way, right? And you're making decisions based on what you want, not what you think an entity that's not even a person, actually wants you to be. So, yeah, but I was incredibly lost to who I was. And I think that's not the lie that we've been sold, but just the other part of success that we're not told to sort of search for. It's like, yeah, run to the top, like keep running to the top, but like know who you are as or keep checking in with yourself to try to understand who you are as you're doing it. So you can be successful and aware.
Yeah, it was very clear reading your book that a big component of it was like finding yourself where you really are and not finding it anywhere externally. And I know you wrote that when you were a kid, your dad would tell you when you were going to school to be a leader, not a follower. And this is one of the lines that stuck with me so much. You said that over time you added your own meaning to the message. And you said, be a leader, not a follower, because your worth is not dependent on belonging to anyone other than yourself. I just like, can you speak to that? Like, what does that mean? What does that mean to you
That's
now? Yeah.
that's the like just when I talk to my son, I think what my dad had me say every day before I left the house was so valuable. Like, and especially in the environment that I was in, I was one of one, and no one like really looked like me around me. And so him telling me every day, reminding me that like I was a leader, I didn't need to be led by other people. But I was like, okay, what's the like version that I add to that sort of addresses the part that like now I know as an adult, but I didn't really understand that other part as a kid. And how can I tell that to my son? And the other day, long story short, there was like a friend that went to camp and they hadn't seen each other since the school year. And we were all like really excited and he was excited. And then he got to camp and like the friend didn't even like give him any energy the whole day.
Aw.
And he was like, at the end of the day, I just asked her, are we still friends? And she said, yeah. And so like, then I went on and played and I said, how did that make you feel? Like throughout, did you feel, he said, I didn't care one bit, not one bit. And I was like, yeah, like I wish I were you. I wish I had that, but I think because I would have probably cared, but I think it's that version of like, be a leader, still care. I love that he like checked in and asked like, are we good? Are we still friends? Is everything okay? Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Like come back to me when you want to. And his worth wasn't determined by someone else. So that's been my goal. It's like we have all of these great lessons that I think are well intentioned and are right for the moment that we're in. But then like, how do I build on that to address the parts that it didn't quite speak to, that like my little brain didn't know how to process?
Yeah. So if you embodied that sentiment of belonging to yourself when you had first started your trajectory at NBC, how do you think that would have shaped the decisions that you made or the path that you took? Like, what do you think would have been different?
Oh, it would have shaped a lot. I mean, there's decisions I write about in the book that I maybe would have made the same decision. It's hard to know because
But felt differently.
yeah, but it would have felt different. And I still like carry some of those decisions like in my body that I'm like working through. But so I think I would have just been, I don't know, but I actually would like to see. Like it would be cool to watch. Like, what is the movie where is it Sliding Doors or whatever? But it would be cool to like see the two different versions. And I don't know what the outcome would have been. And I think I write that it's like, are you still going to get to where I got? Like if you don't completely conform or sort of lose yourself in it, like, I don't know, but I know that you'll be happier. I know that you'll feel better. I know that my life feels fuller now that I know myself more. And I think the value of my life is a lot better than what it was. So I don't know how it would have been different, but I would be interested to
Yeah.
the movie or like the
It's interesting just because I feel like there's so many people in my orbit who are on the ladder and the constant hustle. Work is absolutely my life. I'm working until 3 a.m. all the time. And it just, I mean, everyone obviously has a different path, but there is a cost to that. And I know you spoke about that in the book, that like things can look a certain way. You can get all those accolades, but there's a cost.
yeah. And like, look, I'm still up working at all hours of the day, like, and but now I'm building my own agency and I'm writing my book, and my life is I feel like more myself. It's a diversified plate of like all of the little parts of me. And so I think if it's more of like spending time to figure out, is that what you want to be doing until 3 a.m. And is that meeting what you believe that your life's purpose is? If it is, then like more power to you. If it's not though, and like your stomach is hurting all the time and your hair's falling out, or you're like making decisions based on other people and not like, what you think other people are going to think and not you, then you're probably not in that space with the right version of yourself.
Yeah, I think that it's an important sentiment. I want to talk about your time at NBC. Can you walk us through your journey there and the different phases of your time there?
Yeah, I started there right after college. I was like in my final taking, what are they, midterm semester or papers, and I got a call, and um, I got the call to be a coordinator in the C department at NBC, and I loved it. Like I immersed myself in it. I did all the things that they say that you should do to be successful. Um, and it combined all of the parts that I loved of writing and storytelling and events and socializing. Um, and then I just like quickly moved up, and a large part of that was passion. Like I really liked what I was doing and learning about the world of publicity. And then like another part of it was I really knew how to be what was expected of me. Like I had a whole childhood of like figuring out just how to belong. And so that's where I say like, I don't know. I was also really good or am like really, good at publicity. So, but a part of what I just think I lost was being myself within it all. And I think you can strive um, to like do your best and be the best and not completely like abandon who you are. I do think it's possible. But NBC was great. I learned a lot. I moved around a lot. Of course, there were like a lot of lessons I learned that I talk about in the book, which again were in large part to me just not really knowing myself. But it was a great experience. I mean, it's entertainment. It's TV. Like it's make believe.
Right.
Yeah.
Was there like a particular moment that you can think of that looked flashy on the outside, whether it was like a promotional appearance or a red carpet or a promotion at work that looked a certain way but felt completely different inside? Was there like anything specific you can think of?
Yeah, there's one I write about in the book, which I'm not even going to say because I think it's not a shock moment, but it's like a moment that like you're not like really expecting as I'm writing it. But there was a moment, and it was right before I got promoted, and I had made a decision that made it so like that promotion was almost like a prize for my sacrifice, or like it felt like and so it didn't feel as good as I think it maybe would have felt if it wouldn't have come at it feeling like a consolation for like a decision that I had made. But there's a lot of it's everywhere behind. I had a conversation with someone the other day, and part of that is perfectionism. Like when you make something appear to be so good, like, and a lot of us like struggle with perfectionism. No one really understands or like asks what's happening underneath that. And that was the hardest part of writing this book, but I think was really important is I talk about how like I've lived two lives, one on the outside and one on the inside. And I think most of us are having a whole different experience on the inside of who we are than what we're portraying. And what is both exciting and like nerve-wracking for me a little bit is like I feel like now on August 4th, Or people like you've read it. It's like both my outside and my inside have come together. And from a recovering perfectionist, like that feels wildly uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
I do think I feel like I'm entering into like just a new part of myself because both of my parts are like exposed. And so
Yeah.
now I get to be a full human.
It's interesting, especially because I know you've talked about in the book and even just now how you spent so much time kind of cultivating a certain image and like dealing with that perfectionism. My favorite aspect of the book generally was like the the nuances and the wholeness and the thought processes. And I love when you included like your poems and all of that. So like all of the parts that are you may have perceived as not perfect 10 years ago
Yeah.
are to me, just as a reader, like the most impactful human moments of the story.
Thank you for saying that. Yeah. And I think I wrote about this in the book, but as I like really like love to paint and I love art. And a part of what makes a painting good is like having the shadows or like the dark parts, right? Like that's how it makes it look realistic if you're making really anything. And having to come to terms with like, no, it's actually it's more aesthetically pleasing when you show the parts of you that aren't perfect alongside the parts of you that are shiny or whatever. Like then you become actually full and realized, and but that's hard because you're like, no, just look at the good stuff,
Yeah.
or don't look at me at all, which is also like another like I started off saying I've wanted to be seen and known, but then also be invisible.
Yeah. How do you think about that now in this phase of having your book out and all of that?
I'm
How do
like,
you think about that?
look at it. Do you see me? Wait, don't look at me. And also just like being in publicity, the goal of being a, strong publicist or the marker of a strong publicist is like being able to fade into the background and really
Right.
let someone else shine. So it's very uncomfortable, but I really believe that in writing this, like it became less about me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it felt like whatever story I shared was attached to maybe someone else discovering more of themselves or like opening the door for them to be able to look inside themselves. And so that is what's driving me more than all of my internal like feelings or what I might feel embarrassed about or whatever. I really just want it to find the hands of like who's ever supposed to read it. And then whether they're sitting in a corporate seat and, need to look at themselves or whether they're about to get a promotion. And like I talk about, like, I wish there was like an echelon of women that came to like talk to me before I started. Like, if this is that for someone who's about to be in that role, then I want them to find it. So I'll do whatever I have to do in order to get it to them. But it's definitely so anytime I go into that, like in my head of worrying about that, I'm just like, no, there's like more purpose attached to this than me.
Yeah. I mean, even just for me, I love how there were so many questions posed at the end of different chapters. Because I, similar to you, I'm also a writer and I also express myself in a lot of art. So when you leave the questions at the end, I feel like I'm a perfect audience to read it because I actually do want to think through them and spend the time to do that. So it was really helpful for me, even I can just tell you as like someone that read it. How does it feel to like, I know you mentioned earlier in the book that you were close to your family, but you also felt like they didn't know you because you didn't know yourself. How does it feel to then share so much of yourself? And did you share that with them before this came out? Are they going to read the book? Like, what's the story with that?
They actually just recently read it, and it was really important to me not to like hide, not necessarily to hide it from anyone, but I wanted to be as vulnerable as possible. And I knew that if I showed anyone and invited like any opinions, good
Mm.
or like, oh, I don't know if you should say that. I just wanted to like get it out. And I wanted to feel confident. A big part of this is like whole journey for me has been trusting my gut and to trust that like whatever I put in there, whatever I decided to write about was what was meant to be written. So beyond my editor and like my agent, no one had read it until
Wow.
like very recently. And I shared it with my parents and they of course like loved it. And
Oh,
I was like, okay, some parts like I don't want to talk about yet. You can read it, but I don't. That's still the part of me that's functioning as like what I write about.
yeah.
Uh, but them reading it has made me feel even more excited about just the world reading it. That was definitely like a hurdle of them being able to read it. But yeah, they were and are like such a safe space for me. And I just really I wanted to maintain one space where I felt safe. And so I tried to shield as much as I could. But even beyond them, it's like when you don't spend time to know yourself, if you don't know yourself, how could anyone possibly know you? Like I used to, it's so crazy to think about now, but I used to like meet someone and I'd be like, what do you think? Like, how would you describe me? Like, what do you think of? Like, I would ask people that don't even know me or like
Yeah.
met them to like tell me who I was. Which is also just like another indicator, like, girl,
What do
look,
you think you were looking for?
the answer to who am I? And instead of
Yeah.
sitting and figuring it out, I was looking for other people to tell me what they saw,
Mm.
or how they received me or how they perceived me. And ultimately, like this is just a journey to loving myself and being able to answer that question of who am I, which is always changing. All of our who we are is every day we should like sit and sort of like assess what we wrote down as to who we were and make sure it still aligns or see what else we want to add. Um but yeah, I'm just excited for people to go on that journey themselves.
Yeah. You
Yeah.
talk a lot in the book about finding yourself and figuring out who you are. I know that is always changing, but can you talk about your process of doing that? I know it was a long process. You talk
Yeah.
about dating yourself,
Yeah.
all the things, but I'd love to just hear you talk about it.
My biggest one, I think, which like I keep going back to is the dating myself. So part of that, it started out journaling. I would like set a time for myself every night. I would get myself dolled up like how I would if I were going on a date. And I would sit with my journal and like it started out very like surface, like how it is when you're learning someone new. And I could really feel the wall that I had up. Like I was very short
Mm.
in the journaling and answering the questions, but I was committed to trying to just get to know who I was. And then as the time went by, oh wait, that looks so good. That's such a big
Thank you. It's a huge, I love New York.
I love New York.
I'm not gonna lie, I put whipped cream in my coffee, so
I
that might
love
be why it looks good. Anyway, sorry, continue.
that. And I'm like so distracted. Ooh. Uh, um, yeah, so I would just sit and journal. And then like as I sat there every night, the questions got deeper and I began to get more comfortable, less concerned of like journaling is hard. At least for me, I was like, who's gonna see this? And like who am I talking to? And I don't really
Hmm.
understand how to start. And I was like, okay, you're talking to yourself. You're trying to get to know yourself and just ask questions. Like that was the easiest way for me to get in as opposed to just like having a blank page and trying to learn how to write to myself. And then I took it off the page and into the world. And I like literally took myself out to dinner and would write there. I brought my journal with me and would write about just like what I was experiencing and how I felt. And all of that got me closer to knowing who I was and also feeling very invested in like making my dreams come true or making the life that I wanted actually come true. And recently, I was just feeling like a little off and stress, just like life. Life will always continue to life. And um, I was like, oh, I need some. Yeah, I think what's important is a lot of the journeys that I saw to like self-discovery were felt very curated, but like I wanted to show the reality, which is like you learn something and then you may not forget it, but like you forget it at some point, or like you get in another moment where you're tested and then you're like going back to all the things that you used to do to try to figure yourself out or make yourself feel better. And I was like, okay, wait, stop. Literally grabbed my book, like was like, okay, what do I know to do? What are the tools I know to do for my date myself? This past weekend, I took myself out, went to one of the restaurants that I write about in there, had like an amazing meal.
Aw.
I didn't want the night to end. I was like walking to the bookstore and just like being out in the world with myself. And one of my friends called me. I was like, I gotta go. This is interrupting time with me. But all of that, I think it's just like it's spending time with yourself, getting invested in who you are and what you want. And journaling is changed my life in figuring that out.
I love that. I know you mentioned, I think I wrote it down, that you wanted to also figure out what it looked like to be grounded for more than a few minutes in your journal.
Yeah.
And you wanted a lifetime of consistent connectedness. That was also something that really stuck with me. So after you are journaling for a period of time and then you start to feel more connected to that process and you start to feel more connected to yourself when you're engaging in that process, how do you then bring that feeling outside of that process? What has that looked like and felt like for you?
Yeah, I mean journaling is like the definite anchor. So it's like even when I go out like on the date, like taking myself out on a date, I like bring my journal with me and that's like the piece that goes along. But even again recently it's a journey. It's like you learn all these things and then you stop doing them for some reason or like you fall off. And my body has just been like hurting. And I was like, okay, what do I do? I know somatic movement, non linear dancing, which like I write about in the book. And like that's another way to like get connected to your body, just turning on music and letting your body just go. And I don't think I would have been able to really do that though if I wouldn't have like spent time with myself and like tried to shed the perfectionism a little bit because um being comfortable with yourself is probably more challenging than being comfortable with someone else, I think.
Mm.
Like a lot of people have a hard time spending time with themselves or like the concept of sitting out in a restaurant by yourself. I know for me was like really hard to wrap my head around or dancing by yourself and just like letting yourself go. But those are all ways that I try to stay connected, but then I'll journal after and I'll say like how I felt. What did it feel like when I like just let myself go and dance or um yeah.
Has that changed how you think about, or whether you even think about the concept of what success means to you now after going through all of this self-discovery? How do you think about because obviously you're very ambitious, you're doing so many things, but now you're bringing this different level of self-knowledge and self-worth along with you.
Yeah.
How do you think about success?
I still like have massive big goals, delusional goals. Um, but I just know the different parts that I want in my life now. And so if I'm ever veering too far off of that, or like I said, like my body has just been like hurting, it's like, okay, I know that that's not okay. It's not okay for like your back to make it feel like you can't breathe. So like that means you need to go do some of these things that you talk about in the book. You need to like focus on your body, or you need to spend time with yourself. Success financially, I guess maybe like looks a little bit different for me, because I now understand that it's not just about like how much you get paid. It's also about how much you give to yourself in terms of love. It's about getting to spend time with my son. And like that is something that like a dollar amount can't give me. Time is like means so much more to me now that I've actually sat down. So I think the biggest thing that I keep even like saying to my students is I feel like it's all about having like just a diverse plate. And like even when it comes to success and work, like all of your work doesn't and shouldn't come from one place, especially in this job market. It's like your job could be eliminated tomorrow. Like, and that one place shouldn't be the source where like all of your income is coming from, where all of like where your livelihood is so attached to one thing. So spending time with yourself to figure out, okay, what are other things that I like, and how else can I create a life for myself where those get to be a part of my life, and also I can live off of those things. So I think success definitely looks more diverse to me, and it's not about climbing one ladder. There's like multiple ladders that I want to climb, and then I want them all to converge into one. I want them to all live happily together. And if they can't, then like I want the ladder to go away. And I'm getting more and more comfortable with saying no to certain opportunities.
It's like the journey of wholeness and having like all the things at one time. Yeah. Even just when I think back to my earlier career as an actor, and that's like 24/7. You stay in a house with your castmates, with you don't even call them coworkers. It's just totally you're immersed in whatever that is. But you are at the time, for me, I was neglecting so many other aspects of life, but life still goes on. You still grow up, you still go into different phases. So there's certain aspects of your life that grow and certain that don't. And if you don't cultivate the other ones, they're just not there.
Yeah. And then you're like, wait. And I think you could still be successful. That's like sort of the hard part of why you really have to try to look at like, okay, what is happening with me, which is why journaling is so important, because like you can get to like the parts that you're kind of maybe overlooking. But because you can appear successful, but then when you actually really get down to it, it's like there's so much that you're just ignoring, or you're not servicing in your life. You could be even more successful if you just opened it up a little bit. But it's definitely hard to do. It's a journey.
Yeah. You touched on self-worth, and I wanted to ask you about something that relates to that from the book. You wrote that a Black girl should always find meaning in herself before walking into the halls of any corporate establishment, so as not to give the inanimate place any power in her life. What taught you that lesson, and what do you mean by that?
I think I just so a through line in the book is I start asking, how do you mark time? And I've always marked time by like whatever boy I've loved. And for me, my corporate job like definitely became like one of the boys I loved, but it's like it's not a person. It's just it's a place filled with people, and those people move, and you just can't make decisions based on what you think an inanimate place or like a collection of people want from you. And you have to know who you are and then articulate who you are. There's and I learned it in pieces, but I didn't fully like embody it. There was one like big meeting that we had when I had just become a VP, and I remember I got like some feedback that they didn't think I spoke up enough in meetings, one of the executives. And I remember being like, I don't like, that's just not me. Like, I don't talk if I don't feel like I have something to add to a conversation. And then there was like another really big meeting with some some of the biggest stars that had come into NBC, and we were doing a show with them. And I remember I did the presentation and I like talked about it was like all the different departments, and I did the publicity presentation. And then after, they were like, oh, the president was so like impressed by what you did, and everyone thought you did such a great job. And the whole time I'm like, but that's like, I was just talking to the person, I was just like, giving the thing. And from that, I learned, oh, if you don't tell people who you are, they're going to interpret you however they interpret you. And then you're going to spend time having to be like, wait, that's not me. No, I'm this. And you're constantly chasing just addressing other people's versions of yourself. And so towards like the end of, like, once I became an SVP, I was like, okay, I'm going to sit down with an executive and like tell them who I am. And I was like, I'm a quiet storm and I'm this, and I don't speak unless I have something. And that's all just publicity, right? And marketing. Like you tell other people what to think or say. So I don't know why we don't know how to do that for ourselves. And then I remember I did that with a new executive that I sat down with. And then later there was like a meeting, and they were introducing me, and they said, and Traci is a quiet storm. And, she, I was like, oh yeah, I wish I knew that. I wish I would have said that sooner or done that sooner. But like, you can only do that as much as you know yourself. It's like, so I was presented something and I was like, oh wait, no, that's not me. And I don't like that. Let me tell you who I am. How beautiful would it be to sit down with someone though at the very beginning and be like, hi, I'm Traci. This is how I work, and this is who I am. And then we can move from there. So to answer your earlier question, it's like, I would be very interested to see like if all of these parts of me that I know now entered into that space, like how would it be different?
Yeah. Do you feel like now when you walk into rooms, you embody something totally different than you used to? There's such a difference between someone walking into a room and wanting validation from other people versus walking into the room and owning who you are and being there and just knowing that you belong because you're there.
Yeah.
It's a totally different mindset. I even think back to like when I was in business school, and it's like you're just kind of thrown into these networking events with hundreds of other people, and everyone's like talking to each other, and you can tell sometimes when someone's talking to you, they really want to be talking to someone else because you're not like, there's all these, there's all those different dynamics. So how does it feel to walk into a room today versus, I don't know, 10 years ago?
Definitely feel I feel more like stronger in who I am. I think the biggest thing that I've noticed, particularly recently, is I've always loved art and like poetry and being creative, and I felt like I couldn't be that and be like corporate and this like badass executive or whatever, like the role I was trying to fill. I thought that those had to be separate. And what feels the best to me now is being able to walk in a room and be like, yeah, I have a book, and then I also have this client who's like launching this massive platform, and we just did this X, and I get to be both of those things. That feels really good, and I feel like I'm being myself. And that's what I hope for everyone, is just to get to be who you are and not have to hide parts of yourself.
Yeah. When I was pivoting from like my acting to business pivot, I was thinking about this yesterday. I don't know why. I was thinking about my interview for Columbia Business School was the first interview that I ever had because I had only done auditions. So it was literally the first interview I had ever had. And I was like, okay, so I have to be corporate now. Like, what do corporate people do? Like, what do they wear? And so I'm just Googling, like, what do corporate people wear? Because like what I was wearing for my auditions was not in my mind, appropriate. And my friend had like a subscription to one of the, I don't know, one of those clothing subscription things like Nuuly or something. And she was like, I can use my month for like whatever you want to wear. And I was like, okay, I think I'm supposed to wear a blazer. So can you just order 4 blazers and I'll wear one of the blazers? And I was like putting on this blazer for this interview, being like, this is so like not me. I'd never worn this in my life. I'm totally playing a part right now.
Yeah.
And then I went to business school and it took me like years of like, okay, there's more than one part of me. I don't have to just be this other thing because I'm not that anyways. Like I was so unconventional coming into that. I still am today. I'm doing so many different things too. But it
Yeah.
took me a while to be like, okay, so I don't have to like totally shift. I
Yeah.
can do all of it.
Yes, you could do it all. There was an event that I had for a client the other day. So I was like in the publicist role, which like, publicist black, like so much of my closet was always just black because that's what you wear on red carpets. And I was just like, I really don't want to wear black. I just don't, it doesn't feel like me right now. And I wore this like, but like I also do, it's okay that certain spaces have a certain, maybe dress code. So I was like, okay, but there's like a middle. And so I wore this like red skirt and I still had like like my black leather jacket, which is very like publicist-y, but it was like the first time where I felt like I entered the space as like both of parts of me. And I was like, oh, and this works. Like I am still professional, but I got my like pop of color and I feel like the creative and, the corporate girl have merged and they are alive and well.
Yeah, you're more you. You're like
Yeah.
bringing much more of you to
Yeah.
those environments.
Yeah. Yeah. It felt nice.
Can you talk about the work you're doing now? Like what's a day in the life of all the different things that you're doing right now?
A day in the life, much like working at NBC in Why I Love Publicity is no day is the same. And that's like very exciting for me. It's not mundane, but so I have clients that where we do with my friend Joey, we take on publicity clients, we have Reframe Communications, and we've got like a mix of entertainment folks, platforms that we're launching, talent, producers. And then I also have my book coming out August 4th. So like in the morning, I might be writing an essay that's going to be published for my book. And then the next minute is like a call for a client and we're working on strategy. And then my son, all the mom things, and that changes every day. And then I've also am a narrator and host for Calm. So we might be in the studio recording something like a series for them or talking about what another series could be. So and that feels so nice to also know like if one is maybe slower or like, it's not in its like hot moment, there's like 4 other things that are going and it keeps it fresh. I'm still learning how to navigate it all though. And like I think that's also okay and it's a part of the journey. Like you're constantly learning on how you want to show up. Like what I was going to wear to that event was like a big deal, but it was more of like a big personal moment of like, okay, how am I going to like be true to who I am saying that I am, which is comes down to like how you dress yourself too or how you express yourself. But yeah, it's all over the place and I'm loving it and also trying to create some structure at the same time.
I find everything you just said inspiring because I'm trying to figure out how to do a bunch of different things at the same time. So hearing about everything you're doing just sounds absolutely awesome. This has been such a great conversation.
Thank you.
I was so looking forward to this, genuinely. Your book is fantastic.
Thank you.
I will absolutely tell everyone to read it. I feel like I want to tell my business peers to read it because I think self-reflection that you kind of provoke in it is really important.
Thank you.
And I want to end on one question.
Yeah.
If someone's listening to this and they are like, ooh, I thought I knew myself, but actually there might be parts of myself that I'm neglecting, but I don't know where to start with the self-discovery process. And I feel like I'm in the rat race of everything and I'm just overwhelmed. What actionable steps would you say to that person?
I would say go by This Is How You Love Her. and,
Yes.
and then go through, get a journal. And the first thing I did, which really helped, I just did it recently, is I just threw out a bunch of stuff in my house. I donated a ton of clothes. Like, you accumulate so many little tiny pieces of things in our space, and all of that creates a lot more energy than I think we like give credit for. And the second you like get rid of it, I think it makes more space for you to even think and to exist. So that would be like the first thing I would do. I'd get a book, I'd get a journal, I'd clear out my space, and then I would just start like talking to myself in my journal, asking myself like basic questions, like when you're trying to date someone, or get to know someone. And then I think you will naturally start arriving to like what your next step needs to be. And like, I shared my story. That's just my journey, and everyone will have their own. I learn best from like just hearing other people talk and be like, oh, okay, I like that. I'm going to go try that. And then it
Me
turns
too.
into your own version. So, but once you start talking to yourself, you really like, it's there. And not to be too woo woo, but I really believe in like signs. And I think that like life is really talking to us and like showing us what and where we need to do next. And so even like if someone stumbles upon this, it's like you're hearing this conversation for a reason, and to look into like what that reason might be for you, and just go. Like, don't think about it too much.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. Where and when can everyone find your book?
It's available now for pre-order. Or I don't know, depending on when this will air, but it's available. If it's before August 4th, it's available for pre-order now. If it's after August 4th, it's on stands, and it's everywhere books are sold. So definitely a lot of like local bookstores want to support them, but then it's everywhere where you can get books. And sales, especially pre-sales or like early sales, really matter for books. And so
go get one now. Honestly, it was fantastic. And thank you so much for this conversation.
Thank you. This was great.
I hope you enjoyed this week's episode of Your Career Unscripted. If something about this conversation inspires you, I'd love to know. Feel free to message me on LinkedIn at Jane Cortez and tell me what you learned. I do these interviews because I believe that sharing stories is the absolute best way to learn. Please do me a favor and rate the show on Spotify or Apple Podcasts and subscribe. See you next time.